And right now, oops, you gotta click this 1 second. Right now, the market is definitely challenging for buyers, as you know, and interest rates are up. But from a historic perspective, when you look back, they're still in a very good range and very affordable for people to be buying. So it's not a panic time, but it's definitely, if you didn't buy in the last few years when rates were super low, it might sound high, but it's not that high.
Yeah, yeah, and staying and getting into the market, we have a good economic impact on your community, because when folks are buying, there's a lot of different industries that are affected by that. You got your lawyer for the title company, you got the mortgage, you got the real estate agents, you have your contractors and everybody who's actually doing the building and all of that stuff. So
Home Depot and Lowe's,
Home Depot and Lowe's,
Target, Walmart, anywhere where you get home goods.
those people have to have jobs, right? And that's
Mhm.
the big thing with keeping the economy going. I think folks need to actually understand and know that as well. And not to sit on the sideline because you hear all this recession and all of this stuff going on. Tell me what your feeling is on that folks are talking about recession. How you feel it? What's your thoughts on that?
I think the recession is for the government. It's not for individual people. That's all a mindset, and maybe stop watching the news so much and stop
Yep.
scaring yourself to death, and just think about your own personal economy and stay local. You know, work hard, be of value to your customer, to your company. Be a great employee, because if you're valuable to your company, you're not going to be the first to go if they have to send somebody out. So it's really about staying in the game and, you know, working hard and making yourself super valuable. So if you're super valuable, you can work anywhere, you can get a job anywhere. So I think it's personal.
And how many recessions have you been through and you've been able to manage and maintain where you are?
I would have to go back into the archives, but probably a dozen.
But it's been a lot, right? So, but when it boils down to it, is just everything that you just said, is you know, from the business standpoint, being persistent and, you know, consistent in the business and ramping up. And for the consumers out there, it's like, you know, you need a place to live, right? And today,
yeah, unless you're pupping a tent under you know, the local bridge, which
yeah,
I don't recommend.
and well, it might be cheaper than these rents though, right?
Well, that's a great point, Marcellus, and I'm glad you brought it up. Are we able to do a screen share? I do have some slides.
Sure. Let me see.
I can click screen share, but I didn't know if I needed permission. I can just try it and see if it works.
I just did multiple, so let's see if that gives you.
Okay. Let's see if I can pull this up. Let's enlarge it. Can you see the house and it says why buy now?
Nope, nothing's came up yet.
No.
But it says with multiple participants can share simultaneously, so.
I'm on, okay, maybe I have to hit that. How about that?
There you go.
Okay. Yeah, so let's just take a look at the rental market, because this is really important to understand about housing, because when you're in the rental market, you don't have a stable housing base. Your house payment for that rent of the apartment or whatever you're renting isn't fixed. It's not, it can go up. It can go up annually, or if you're on a month to month, it could go up monthly. And we are in the largest increase in rents over the last couple of years. Actually, since COVID started in 2020, they've seen the largest percentage increase in the cost of rental housing. So, and then here's another chart that shows this is what they were expecting, but this is what we got.
Right.
So we got huge increases in rents, and I'm sure anybody that is renting knows that that's true. And they can, or they've talked to family members that have told you their rents have gone up, or, you know, you're trying to get rental housing for maybe your college student or something.
Correct.
So it's just not a stable fixed housing. So, and not only when you're renting, your rent's not fixed, you don't own, you're not building any equity in your property. You can't decorate or change it to what you like. You know, the landlord might be slow in fixing things. So there's just a whole bunch of things that happen when you're a renter that you have very little control over. And if you're more on a fixed budget, having that ability for the rent to go up on you is very painful, because then you got to take the money out of some other bucket. So renting is not stable housing, where if you're buying, you become a homeowner, then, and you're in a fixed rate loan, your principal and interest payment are fixed for the life of the loan. So you know exactly what target you have to hit every month. So it's a really big, important security factor for families. You know, when they become homeowners, they can fix in that housing payment. And I think that's something that's little talked about and a little bit missed in, you know, when we're teaching people about finances.
One thing to add in there, though, is what about the fact that if something happens with that owner and they can't pay, then there's no security at all in that property, because you don't have the ownership and you don't even know when the sheriff is coming.
Yeah, because if they sell the house and they can ask you to leave, is that what you're referring to?
Well, no, if they went into foreclosure, well, that's part of it.
Oh, yes,
That's
yes,
one
yes.
thing too, but if they went into foreclosure, that's a whole nother avenue.
Yeah, and you don't know that, and that has happened. That has definitely happened, where the owner was taking the rents, receiving the rents, but they, for whatever reason, not the right reason, but they weren't making the house payment, and that left the renter, yes, in a huge bind. And then they had to get out without really notice and stuff. Yeah, that's a terrible situation. So
Yep.
that's another reason that it's not secured that I had not thought of.
Yep.
So definitely, you know, renting is from that standpoint a little less secure than owning, because when you're owning, you're the one that is in management and control of your housing situation. So it's an awesome benefit to owning. And there's so many intangible benefits to owning, because, you know, you can decorate, you can change it, you can add on, you know, you can have your gardens, you know, you can do what you like to your house, and it's yours, and you're the one, every time you make that payment, you're building that equity in your home. It's like a savings account, a different kind of savings account, but every time you make that payment, you're contributing to your own future. And I think that's so powerful. And I always tell clients, like, you're paying a mortgage, whether you're a renter or owner. You're either paying your mortgage and getting the benefits, or you're paying the landlord's mortgage and he's getting the benefits.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of folks too, when they're working, and you know, I'm a pick on nurses right now. Nurses go and they work 60, 90 hours a week, and income is just lovely. But when they see that tax, they don't have anything to offset the taxes that they pay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things that I believe, that, you know, if you have a house, whether, even if it's not the house that you live in, if you go and rent something, right? Because now you can walk into the tax shelter situation. So
yeah,
buying a house is really, you know, even when everybody says not a good time, it's almost always a good time, as you know, as long as the inventory is there for you to partake in and start that process.
yeah. I think if people understand the benefits of, you know, owning versus renting, then you know, they understand that you can buy and sell in almost any market. I have bought and sold in almost in every market since 1989. So that's quite a few ups and downs. And I've bought and sold, and I have never once been sorry that I own real estate. I can go into just the housing market a little bit. as far as house prices, and this chart goes all the way back to 1960, and you can see like the average home sales price was back around 20,000, which is, you can't even get a car. So, that was amazing. In the 80s and the 90s, especially in the 80s, this is when interest rates were in the double digits, between like 12 and 20%, you know, in the Jimmy Carter era.
In 95, one day about somewhere between 13 and 16%, I think in 95.
Yep, and I bought in, let's see, I bought a house here in 91, and my first house I bought in 89, and I had a 11% 30-year fixed rate. And then in 91, I bought a single family home, and I was super excited because I got 9 3/8 on a 30-year fixed. And I was like, I'm under double digits, and I was really excited. So now we're up here where the average home is, you know, $500,000, and interest rates are, you know, ranging in the mid upper fives. Can get a little bit lower with good credit on a FHA loan, but they're still really good. If you look back in history, when you're saying the number 5 or even the number 6 as the first digit, that's still very low interest rate. You just have to like broaden the perspective. Yeah, so a 30-year average of interest rates is 6.65. So we're still below, actually below average, which is amazing.
And looking at your chart, just for investment purposes, like look at where the dips are versus what people are actually seeing in the stock market and all of that stuff. Even the 2008 dip is not as bad as the upside if somebody had came in right after 2008 and invested in the housing market.
Yeah, because it took, like, the peak was right here at 2008, and it took us to probably about 2013.
Yep.
To get back, and then, you know, we've had a little, but that's like teeny little bumps.
Yeah, and then you ride that wave back up.
But if you just look at it, like you just draw a line, like the average is an upward curve. You're increasing. So, you know, old axiom, you know, they're not making any more land. So people that want to build wealth, I'm pretty sure most of them own property. I don't know any that don't.
It's the long game, but it's where it's the safe bet.
Yeah, and we have to have a roof over our head, so why not have our own roof?
Yep.
So, you know, and maybe it will go down a little bit, but you just stay in your house. As long as you're not selling, then you're not going to realize any loss if it does go down. And if you're way up here and it comes down a little bit, you're still way above where you were. So whenever you're talking about like a dip, you got to know where you're dipping from. Because if you're at the top of Mount Everest and you come down, you're still like way above everybody else.
Correct.
Way above everything else. So it's, you have to have that viewpoint, that perspective of where you're talking that you are. So I think it's really exciting to be a homeowner. I do have a chart. This is a forecast from Bank of America. They're forecasting a 10% increase in housing this year and 5% in 2023. A little more conservative was Realtor.com, and they were projecting in our Maryland area in, you know, the 4 or 5% range here. So a little bit hotter market was like Southern California, Florida, a couple other areas. So that is not a dip at all. That's an increase.
That's an increase.
Yeah, that's not, maybe it's not 20%, but it's still an increase. So if you buy now, you can avoid the additional increase the next year that they're expecting and the one in 2023.
Yeah, and is what, 3 to 5% a year anyway.
Yes. Yeah, so we're in normal. So that's great. That's awesome. People should be excited about that and not scared. And like I said, even if you dip a little bit from a peak, you're not down that far,
Correct.
you know. And most of the time, I think the average, well, the old average for keeping a home back, I don't know, maybe a decade ago was 7 years, but I believe people are staying in their homes much longer than
No
that
longer.
now.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will, you know, they like the neighborhood, they like their neighbors, they like the general area, their kids are in school, they just renovate their house, add on, renovate, update the kitchen, update the baths, and just stay happy where they are.
And with the rents increasing, some kids are staying home. Some families are actually moving in together to try to make it, you know, with the economy being crazy.
Yeah, I think it's lovely that families are having extended families, you know, being together and supporting one another. And I think that's can be a great situation for, you know, when you have multi-generational and you just, you know, I loved my grandparents. You learn so much from your grandparents. And I think it's something that people used to do, you know, a century ago. And now if it's coming back, I think that's an awesome way to build everybody in the family up. Do you want to take a look a little bit at interest rates?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. I gathered this chart. This is from Freddie Mac. And this just shows the climb that we've had in interest rates. And this is just through April. So it was in the low fives then, but this was one of the fastest increases in interest rates that they had tracked in history. Wow. So almost doubled in just 5 months of a year. So that's pretty amazing. And they're predicting rates by the end of the year to be in the low to mid sixes.
Okay.
So if you can get a rate that starts with 5, start with 5, you know, and get in now, get active now. They're predicting rates in the low 7s.
Wow.
In 2023.
So what, go ahead.
And I did a calculation when rates were like at 5, and then I did it at 5.5 on a $300,000 loan. No, it was more of an increase. It was from, I did a customer that the rates changed on them, and they were at 3.875 back last year, but they didn't buy on like a $300,000 loan. And then I worked the rates where they are now, and the payment increase was $364.
Gotcha.
So if we go from the mid 5s to a 7 something, you know, if you buy now, you're going to keep your payment down. If you wait another year for rates to go up and house costs to go up again, you could be paying an additional $300 and some on top of that.
So what do you think about the 3 bad words that have been coming up lately? Adjustable rate mortgages, ARMs.
It's been a long time since I have suggested an adjustable rate mortgage for a client. At where rates are right now, I still think the safety and the security and the long-term peace of mind of a fixed rate is the best way to go. If somebody is definite that they're only going to stay in a property, say they're in the military or something, if they think they're only going to be in this area for 3 to 5 years, then maybe a 7-year ARM is a safe, you know, bet.
Okay.
If they think they're going to be in the house from 5 to 7 years, I would go to a 10-year ARM so that you give yourself some cushion that something can happen. Over the long run, if somebody can handle the volatility, so when the interest rate does go up on an adjustable, they can handle the additional payment, I think it could. I think that there's a lot of safety nets built into the adjustable rate mortgages. They have annual caps. They have a lifetime cap. So as long as you can handle the payment at its peak and you're still comfortable with that, it can work out fine, because I think over 30 years, it goes up and it goes down, it goes up and it goes down. It can average out to a pretty decent rate. But for a customer that would keep them awake at night, that would give them anxiety, or they literally can't afford the payment, I think that it's not a good idea.
So
I think,
what do you think about that though, with the, so the interest rate you projected here until 2023, do we have any indications at all that maybe in 24, or the end of 2023 or the 24, that the interest rates will come back down, which would actually make a little bit of sense for that adjustable rate borrowing?
that is a long projection. I haven't seen any projections into 2024. I don't want to, get into some dicey waters here. It could depend on, where the economies are. Somewhat, it depends a lot on policy.
Yeah.
We have a lot of policies and spending that's, causing inflation.
Yep.
And if we're still doing those same things that cause inflation, I don't see that rates would come back down. If we get into a more of a, production mode and keep the government stop spending like drunken sailors, I think maybe we could peel it back.
Yeah, I just so happened, I was in a conversation the other day, and they brought.
Did you see something?
Some folks brought that up and just said that they thought that the arms would be it's funny they're coming back, but they may be a thing, and it might be not so, it might not be as scary as folks may think, because maybe at some point the rates will actually stabilize or come back down, which will make sense if they're still, still holding that loan program and to be able to refinance if they need to.
I think that they've built in a lot of sensible guards into the adjustable rate mortgages. Like I was saying, they have the annual caps and they have the lifetime caps, so that your loan can adjust by more than some percentage rate. Some are 1% a year, some are 2%. But you would know, and you can actually do the calculation of where your payment would go if it adjusts up to the maximum, and you get disclosures.
Gotcha.
I think you have to be wise and considerate about how you like to spend your money. Do you have considerable savings so that you could supplement your income with savings if the payment did go up and you couldn't refinance? I think you have to look at the long game and say, if it maxed out at the top and stayed there for a while, can I make that highest payment? And you have to be real with yourself about it, about whether it's going to give you anxiety or not. I mean, like I said, I took a 9 3/8 on a 30-year fixed rather than an adjustable rate, and they were available back then.
Yep.
Because I was new in the market, I was young, and you have to know your risk tolerance. The same as when you're investing, you really need to know your risk tolerance. If you're risk adverse, then I would take a fix. If you're a little more gutsy and you have the income, or your income is increasing, then it can be a good thing to do. It can be a safe vehicle.
One of the things I'm going to say, and I'll probably get bashed for this, is that depending on where you are and how old you are and where you are in your career, folks, we need to start looking at multiple streams of income anyway, so that all of these situations won't really be a problem that could affect you, so that you're storing more money away. You have reserves that can come in and kick in when anything actually happens, because we never know what's going to happen out here. As crazy as things have been, who would have thought that a pandemic would come and shut things down, right? So,
shut the whole world down. No, I'll be in there getting bashed with you, because I 100% support what you said. And I think it's very vital that people focus 95% of their attention on their income and their income production, and how to, like you said, how to get multiple income streams coming into your household. And because the income is king.
Income is
Income is king.
And we have to realize, like right now, look at the inflation. I mean, what are you doing? You're just sitting at home and not eating the peanut butter, extra Skippy peanut butter like you want, and you're going to get whatever the generic brand is, because, you know, instead of going out and trying to figure out a way to make money, which is crazy too, because there's more opportunities out here right now because of the folks not going back to work after the pandemic.
I think most of the time when there's a lot of bad news, a lot of people do push to the sidelines. So the people that decide to keep moving forward, keep moving towards their goals and dreams, keep, you know, challenging themselves and pushing themselves, those are the people that really experience a lot of good things in hard times, because you can take advantage of opportunities just because less people are out there looking for opportunities, because, you know, they're listening to the woe is me, and, you know, just stay away from the TV, stay away from the news, and I don't care what channel you watch, just, you know, keep your mind clean, and, you know, focus on your goals and on being optimistic and make your own economy.
Yep, and here's a cheap one for the folks with pretty feet. They have an app out there that you can take pictures of your feet and people will pay you $50 or $100. I know a 26-year-old who was doing that, and she turned her mother onto it. They're making side money just taking pictures of their feet. And I saw a video on YouTube, I think it was yesterday, once they told me they were doing that, and the lady said she makes over 100 grand with taking pictures of her feet.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my Lord.
So I mean, we're in a wave now where, you know, you really can make a whole lot, but it looks like we're being pushed to the end of this meeting by Zoom.
Well, that was super fast. I had so much more to share. We have to do this again. This is fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's just asking for upgrade. Are you seeing that on your screen? It might be just mine.
No, I don't see it on my screen.
Yeah, it might be just mine. So maybe we have about 10 more minutes, so we'll be good, I guess.
So yeah, I think, and hopefully they won't cut us off, but just real quick, I think this was just some numbers that I had crunched, that I kind of talked about how the figures change. You know, when your rate changes from 5 to 5.5, you go from this $2,085 to $2,323. So it's a big jump, just letting rates just go up and up and up. So it's really important to, that was old. So the best time to buy a house is, the answer to this question is, the best time to buy is when you can afford to buy.
Yep.
And if you can afford to buy now, then the best time to buy now is now. So don't listen to the naysayers, and, you know, on the news shows, and again, it doesn't matter where you watch, not being, you know, making any suggestions, but you know, they get ratings by sensationalizing and most, you know, a lot of negativity. And so just turn it off and get out there. And like Marcellus says, get out there and think about ways that you can make or have multiple streams of income. And one of them can be in housing. Because if you buy a house and then later on you could turn it into maybe a rental property, and then you can buy another house.
You got it.
So, and when you're buying, you know, it doesn't necessarily, like your first home, and Marcellus, you can probably speak to this, doesn't have to be your dream home, because in most cases, your first home isn't your last home. So you start where you can afford. Buy what you can afford to buy.
Buy a house you can afford. It'll amaze you what happened 5 or 10 years down the road and now you build up enough equity, you have $200,000 worth of equity in your home to sell and then buy the home that you really want. You didn't have the money that first year to put down 20% or more and then get a feasible payment. And now because you held off on getting the dream, but you got into a home the same way we do when we get rentals, right? We get rentals and it's not the best quality rentals that you wanted, but right now in this market, you're probably paying $2,000 a month in a townhouse for a rental property that doesn't have an updated kitchen, doesn't have a owner suite bathroom and this, that, and the third. But you can purchase that home today, and 3 to 5 years or so, you have $200,000 worth of equity maybe to help you put down $200,000 on that new dream home, and then also offset to bring the monthly mortgage payment down cheaper to exactly where you and your family can safely be able to make those payments.
Yeah, and even if you stay there and you have to stay there a little bit longer, it's happened to me, then maybe I necessarily wanted to. I still had a safe roof over my head. I still had a house that I had put my creativity into. My family's, it was where we built our memories. Yep. So, we were in a good position. We were in a good spot. We were in a safe spot. We knew what our payment that we had, that nut we had to crack every month. So, it wasn't bad. It was a good thing. And then when the time came, we got to sell, make some money, and put it into our next property.
And you can also, let's say for instance, let's go to Baltimore City for a second. You find a Baltimore City home, it's a 3-bedroom, one bath, right? The first thing most of these folks are going to say is, I don't want that. That's not enough bathrooms. Well, how about at the price you can buy it at 3.1, somebody else, an investor, is going to buy it, put the 2 or 3 bathrooms in it, and increase the price of that thing, additional $100,000. You could have purchased that house, got a loan down the road, and put the same baths in it, and created that same equity yourself in the next couple of years yourself. And then you would be the one that make $80,000 or $100,000 on a deal. You know? So it's just really ways of mindset and ways to think about home ownership and the way you're actually supporting your economy by purchasing a home.
Yeah, you're helping to improve the economy, because when housing is active, when there's a lot of real estate transacting, it stabilizes not just the family and the community, but it really starts stabilizing the whole state and the whole country. That's why we've been doing so well, is because real estate has been doing well as the cornerstone of the economy, but it's definitely the cornerstone of a family.
Yep.
And when you have more ownership in a neighborhood, you have a better neighborhood. You have a more stable neighborhood.
Yep. And folks have to realize too, one of the things, the reason why sometimes you don't even notice the economy is really as bad as it is because there's a boatload of investors buying in your neighborhood that are taking on the responsibility that you could take on to help improve your neighborhood, which is a rough thing, because sometimes you get renters that are not so great with taking care of the home and the neighborhood, and that's why some folks value, go down. And so becoming a homeowner, having investment properties is a very good way of actually leaving a legacy for your family by creating some wealth. And a lot of folks don't know about that. People buy $300 tennis shoes, when they buy fancy cars and all of that stuff, end up with an $800 car payment when, you could be helping your family build wealth, right?
Yeah, and if you pay $2,000 a month rent, that's $24,000 a year.
Yeah.
And you multiply that by just 5 years, you've paid $120,000 to the landlord in rent. $120,000.
Well,
I don't think that most people even have thought that they would say, I don't have access to $120,000. You paid the landlord $120,000.
quick story. At a Baltimore City rental property, renting it for $1,000 a month. I told the guy, I said, look, you guys are having problems paying me $1,000 a month. I'll sell the house to you for $100,000. At that time, the interest rates were still pretty low. So they probably would have got a payment of what, $700, $800?
Yeah.
And
$1,000, 100,000 was about $480 principal and interest.
yeah, and the area that was in, the taxes were only $800 a year. So the taxes and everything are cheap. And they've been in the house for 5 years, paying me $1,000 a month. And just like how you did the calculation, they told me, well, I wouldn't pay more than $15,000 for the house. He thought I was going to come and say something like $15,000 or $20,000. Now, this was a house, but when I bought it, it was renovated. And they say, but because of the area, I guess, they say, well, I wouldn't pay more than $15,000 for it. And I'm looking, I said, well, you've been here for 5 years. And you paid rent $1,000, $12,000 a year times 5. Come on, you do the math.
Yeah.
And that's what people have to start being mindful of.
$60,000,
$60,000.
half of the 120. 60,000.
Yeah. So these are things that folks really have to think about. I wish I had a better camera so that you can see my shirt better.
Home ownership over renting. Yeah, it's true. It's true. I've never been sorry that I was a homeowner. And it's definitely brought a lot of pleasure and memories and money to my family. And we'll continue to do it. We'll continue to buy more houses. So
Laura, we appreciate